audio is very subjective. It's kind of like a TV show. There's going to be people that are very hard-headed, that do not agree with you, that prefer different things than you, and a lot of times they like things for different reasons. And I can only tell you the reason why I like things. I'm a perfectionist, and when I listen to audio equipment, if there's any stabbing peaks or cuts or funky coloration, it bothers me. So me personally, in my opinion, I think I'm really good at hearing the frequency response, hearing the tonality, detecting problem spots, because I recorded for many, many decades at this point. And I would use microphones and I would talk into them every single day. And it would affect the way my voice sounds depending on the microphones I was using. And I would pick up on the tonality. I would memorize the tonality without even seeing the frequency response. And I would pick up on the characteristics I didn't like. So when I learned how to read frequency responses and I realized just how much it correlated, it became common sense to me about how things are supposed to be. So I developed my own target, my own sound signatures that I think sound optimum, sound right to me. And when you go into the audio world, that's not what they like. I mean, there's some targets out there about how headphones are supposed to sound, like the Harman target, or lately it's been like diffuse field with like a high mid treble tilt and a bass boost, below 200 hertz and all this stuff. They just make up all these rules. But to me, diffuse field level treble, a ear gain scoop at 3K, and a warm boomy bass boost with 200 hertz mud, quote quote, sounds good. And the Beyerdynamic DT990s do that. The Samsung Galaxy Buds Pros do that. I've made a lot of videos. If you join the membership, you can watch them, how these things have the same frequency response. And I just wanted to say this. Earlier today, some people were glamorizing the Sennheiser HE1, which is a $59,000, I think it's a electrostatic headphone or something made by Sennheiser. So it's not like a dynamic driver headphone, I believe. I don't really care too much about it. But they were glamorizing it. They were saying like, it's really good, even though they've never used it. Again, they're irrational. They just care about price point. It's almost like a lot of these people will, decide that they want something to be good and sound good, even though they've never used it. And they'll be like, a company spent all this money to make this product. It's got to be good. It's just irrational. It's belligerent. And I mentioned the DT990s being, better. So what did they do? They put the two frequency responses of the DT990s and the Sennheiser HE1 together. And this is what it looked like. And you see that? The Beyerdynamic DT990s in green, if you look at the line, it's actually much smoother overall. Like if we look at the red over here, that's the Sennheiser HE1 with Warnish pads. That's kind of funny. Because again, pad wear can change the sound of the headphone. But if we start with the bottom frequencies back here, we can see the red line is more jittery back here. And as we go through the mids, we can see there's this weird dip right here on the red one at like 1.5K that's not supposed to be there. So you're supposed to smooth out. Like whenever you look at frequency responses like this, I want you to trace over it with your finger, and whichever one is smoother and easier to trace over, like you can see the red the red line right here. It's much more lumpy. And if we look, it has about the same amount of treble, the same amount of mids, the same amount of bass. And a lot of these people who hate the Beyerdynamic DT990 because people tell them to, will say that the DT990 is too muddy, that it doesn't have enough sub bass. But yet they will glamorize this, $59,000 headphone that has pretty much the same exact frequency response, the same exact tuning. The only difference is some tonality lumpiness variations throughout the response. They have about the same amount of treble, the same amount of mids, the same amount of bass. But that green line overall looks a bit smoother. Look at this huge cut on the red one at like 10K. There is a 4 kilohertz cut right here on the green line. If we look here, 4 kilohertz. That green cut right there. That's because of the pads. Now these are the DT990s. It doesn't say the it says the DT990 Pro 250 ohm. You'll see that in a lot of Beyerdynamic headphones, the DT880s, especially the DT770s. You'll see if you Google DT770 frequency response or DT1990 frequency response, you should see a huge 4 kilohertz cut that cuts down even more than that. So that's due to like the pads and stuff. It's a problem. But the DT990s actually have the least 4 kilohertz cut problem. And on that measurement, it looks pretty extreme to me, to be honest. And it makes me wonder if it's like the black pads, because I have a pair of black pads for the DT990s and they do sound a little bit worse. So I'm thinking maybe that's the black edition pads or something. I don't know. But the main point of this video is you got people who will say that the DT990s are muddy at 200 hertz. 200 hertz. Yet this HE1 that they glamorize for $60,000 has the same amount of mud at 200 hertz. They'll be like, I literally watch them say, wow, the HE1 has such good bass extension and emphasis for a open back headphone. These are both open back headphones. The DT990s are just $150 instead of $60,000. And we can see the green line is much smoother in the low, mids, and bass. And it's smoother up in this region too. And if you negate, a little bit of coloration going on here at the high frequencies, you could argue the green one is overall more intact. So again, you get different measurements based on the rig that you're using, based on the target that you're comparing the headphones to. And I don't want to get into all the details. Like I just got done watching this Abyss headphones vlog, podcast thing that they do. And Abyss headphones, there's these people that make these severely overpriced headphones, I guess, out of their facility, or something. I don't know. But, they'll promote DAC amps with tubes in them and all this weird stuff, and cables and stuff that are supposed to make things sound better. There are people out there that just want to believe, in voodoo magic and mystery and, swapping out the cables, swapping out the amp, doing all these things and buying these overpriced, horribly tuned headphones and, mixing and matching the equipment together to try to get a different sound. It is just the most irrational, strange thing, I've ever seen. And in the headphone community, the microphone community, nobody agrees with each other. There are people that will literally say the Neumann TL103 is a overly bright, sibilant piece of crap, even though that it is the best sounding microphone I've ever used. It's the most transparent, it's the most bright, it's the most clear. And my wife is cutting her nails. and you can hear it. But anyway, these microphones are extremely sensitive. But I will see you guys later because it's been 10 minutes. But a lot of you guys wanted me to like review, ASMR channels equipment. But some of you guys wanted me to stop comparing them to my equipment. Because a lot of you guys want to believe that everything out there is an option. And honestly, for ASMR especially, or if you're not that picky about the way things sound, I agree. You can use a lot of different equipment to get the job done. But when you're trying to get that little bit of extra, oomph out of your equipment, the TL103 and the DT990s, these things, and honestly, I really think I just can't leave out the Buds Pros, because these things, in my opinion, studio quality, amazing earbuds. They need to be involved in all of this. It's, in my opinion, it's the optimum tuning, it's the optimum flavor to give the most flattering, fun, good sound possible. And, I'm just gonna, keep promoting these sound signatures as optimum, as how it should be, because I've listened to everything out there. And, this is just my favorite sounding equipment. It sounds right to me. If somebody says this stuff, the DT990s are bright and sibilant, if they say the TL103 is bright and sibilant, if they say the Buds Pros are bright and sibilant, and they, want to call it harsh because, the DT990s have treble spikes when they're brand new, and, all this stuff, fine. They want to say the DT990's bass will distort even though it doesn't under normal use unless you're trying to make them distort. If they just want to keep saying, oh, the bass will distort, oh, they're harsh in the treble, or the TL103s are harsh and sibilant. If, even the Buds Pros are muddy, and, the DT990s are muddy because they don't have a 200 hertz mud cut, because they listen at high levels, like 80 dB and above, and so 200 hertz is supposed to be flat and not boosted. If you want hearing damage and you want to pretend like you're in a movie theater, and even then, it's just, again, because at different loudness levels you want more 200 hertz mud, or more bass boosting. At different, levels that you're listening to audio, it changes. I think even Apple earbuds are actually starting to do that, where it'll change the bass emphasis based on how loud your listening levels are. And if you listen really loud, then I guess you don't want much 200 hertz mud. But, for people who listen at lower levels, technically, scientifically, objectively, if you look at the equal loudness curve, it's supposed to add more mud. I'll see you guys later. Again, this is a very touchy subject because everybody has their own opinion about equipment, about pizza, about anything, Anyways.